My name is Uliana Chromyak, and I am the Executive Director of Ukraine House Davos, and I would like to welcome all of you today. Thank you for coming, and I am very pleased to announce the second panel. Answering the call, Humanitarian Heroes to Rescue. I would like to introduce the moderators of this panel. Svetlana Hrytsenko, member of the board of Viktor Pinchuk Foundation. Please, Svetlana. And Lena Kožarny, founding partner and CEO of Horizon Capital. And I will pass the floor to the moderators to introduce our speakers.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining our panel. And as Uliana said, we're going to be speaking today at this panel with the heroes, humanitarian heroes. People are who are literally helping saving lives every day in Ukraine. And it's my honor to start and present our speakers. And I'd like to start off with Irina Kondratova, who is heading the Kharkiv Regional Parental Center, and every day she saves lives of Ukrainian children. I'd like also to invite Olena Krivenko, who is chairman of the board of charitable organization Kolo, who is together with her fantastic team. They are also saving lives every day by providing medical humanitarian assistance to Ukrainians.
I'm very proud to be here, and I'm very proud of the people that I'm about to introduce. And I want to start off with Michael Capone, President and Founder, Global Empowerment Mission. From the first days of the war, they were on the ground. They've committed 537 trucks, almost 39,000 relocations, 250 million in aid for 2022, 117.6 million delivered, doing so much for liberated territories. Please, Michael, join us on stage. And I'm very proud to have with us from Toronto, Canada, Christina Waller. Christina is Director of Ukrainian Initiatives at Timurtay Foundation. And Christina is both a committed patriot and friend of Ukraine who has done many medical missions and been involved in Ukraine her entire life. And she's also working with a team with Jim Timurtay and the Timurtay Foundation, who have been contributing immensely to Ukraine since after the Soviet Union, increased their support starting when the war started in February 2014, and since the full-fledged invasion have backed Ukraine for over $25 million. Thank you so much, Christina, for joining us.
And to start our panel, I'd like to give a word to Irina Kondratova. Irina, the question I have to you, you're in Kharkiv from the first day of war, and we all know that Kharkiv is being bombed every day, is under the shellings every day, and you're saving life of the youngest, the smallest children of our future, of Ukrainians. Could you share more an experience? What did you see? How is it in today? What it is to be in Kharkiv all this time?
Доброго дня, пані та панове.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now I don't feel comfortable. I don't believe that I am a hero. That's first thing. Secondly, and this is the first makeup, the first dress, and the first shoes from the first day of the war. I found out that you can forget about how to wear all these things. I came from Kharkiv today, and it's 30 kilometers away from Russian border. And our city is considered to be one of the most ruined, most damaged city where most people were killed. Now Ukrainians call this city reinforced concrete, and perinatal center hasn't stopped its work for not for a single day from the first day of the war. These were months that required from me and from my people very, very special and very personal medical and managerial decisions. Till the end of the first week, I had only 30% of staff left, and the transportation stopped. The children's clinics stopped working, several maternity hospitals, and a large children's surgical hospital. Most of us, we decided that we will stay and will live in the hospital. We will not go back home. We will be changing every 3-4 days. Several doctors, several nurses brought their families to the hospital because their buildings, their houses were already damaged. Many pregnant women and many children stayed with us because their families were on occupied territories. They had nowhere to go back. All the supply chains were broken. We had to cook for ourselves, for our patients. We were baking bread. I was looking for medicines all over Ukraine where there was still peace. And the friends of my children were raising money all over the world. We prepared the cellars for as maternity hospital, and we would give our patients the earphones and would turn off on the music so they don't hear alarms or the shellings, so that they're not worried too much. And we no one knew what would happen. We gave them medicines, children's clothes, even the children's perambulators, and then we would take the prematurely born babies to the cellar, and the doctors and the nurses went there with them and their mothers, and they stayed there for 78 days. In Ukrainian hospitals before the war, there were no cellars, no bomb shelters that were organized for the first aid, and the babies with the weight up to 1,000 grams who critically depend on artificial ventilation, who depend on oxygen. We were trying to take them to the cellar the first and the second day, and we then realized that that's the one-way road. And I am the rehabilitation doctor. I was not just the head of the center, but I worked as the doctor. And we agreed silently that we will not go with the children to the cellar, and we will stay with them in the equipped department where these children have chance to survive.
This is why our nurses were simply throwing their mattresses on the floor and napping right under these incubators where they had no strength with the shelling and bombardment. But we survived, and even when wounded children were coming in, we had to also organize a pediatric surgery department in our hospital on top of everything we had. And now the situation has changed. The artillery cannot shoot all the way to the city, but the Russians are still shooting at us with cruise missiles, and we're sitting without communications or water or electricity, and all hospitals as well. We have more deliveries, but the pregnant that come, they are very difficult conditions. 75% of them have chronic conditions, severe chronic conditions. They're infected. they have missed defects in the embryo development for 10 months or several months. They had no access to proper healthcare services and obstetrician services as well. So just imagine 100% of women from the occupied territories, they have deficit anemia, the weight deficit of babies, simply because they had no proper nutrition. We have the illnesses in the newborn that the civilized Ukrainian world hasn't seen for several dozens of years, and our young doctors were only reading about such cases in the textbooks, but this is the reality of our life, and it is extremely challenging right now for us. But we are persevering, we are standing, because we understand that we are rescuing the world right now in as much as we can where we are. But there's one bit that I have from Ukrainian doctors to share with you. Don't forget about us. And on behalf of Ukrainian mothers, I would like to ask you to remember that on the daily basis in Ukraine, in the center of Europe, the kids are dying, and this cannot happen. This should not happen. We understand in Ukraine, in this concrete steel standing Kharkiv, that we need to survive because Ukraine is above everything to us. Slava Ukraini.
I just want to say, Irina, to you and to all the doctors in Ukraine who are saving lives of children as well of grown-ups every day. And now I'd like to pass a word to Alena. Alena, you and your big team, you're working in different fields in different regions of Ukraine. And I would be grateful if you could share your thoughts on first, has the situation changed since the beginning of full-scale invasion? Is it better now, more hard for you to work? And what are what's most needed in humanitarian field in Ukraine? What do you see? Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say that this is a big honor to be a voice of all Ukrainian volunteers here today. And this is a big honor for me to present Ukraine here on these platforms. Our organization was established 9 years ago, before the war. And during the life before the war, we work in the areas of education, medicine, equipment for kids' hospitals, and culture. 21st of February changed everything, and it's also changed the direction of our work. From the 27th of February, we start evacuation people from Kiev region. We help and evacuate more than 2,000 people. More than 500 people have been evacuated from Mariupol in the beginning. Also, we help with evacuation in Mariupol, Kherson region, when it was needed. And now we have a project, Childhood Without War. Under this project, more than 2,000 kids evacuated and stay in safe space in Turkey. And this is a project where all costs are covered by the donors. Kids live, eat, have insurance, educate, and be in safe place. Another part of our work, this is the medicine. We help all hospitals who come to us with their needs. We bought ambulances and equipped them fully with all necessary equipment for giving help to people. And For now, just only in December 2022, we delivered equipment for 24 hospitals. We make accent on that equipment that is very expensive, that it's not so easy to get. One part of our work, this is the work with the apparatus of vacuum therapy that helps when the people have wounded. And it's necessary to understand that this kind of equipment can work only when it is a special consumables with it. So while we try to keep our work very sustainable, when we get the equipment to the hospital, we keep in contact with it all the time, so they can come back to us with their needs. Also, we will have a big volunteers network through all the Ukraine, because our foundation has been established with a discussion club. This is all Ukrainian community, and it was our superpower at the beginning, because in one moment we have a big network, we have logistic, we have effective work, we have people on the places, and we can coordinate quickly, effectively, verify needs, and do it as much effective as we can do. Another direction of work, this is the cars and all necessary safe equipment for our defenders. And we also have the school of drones, where we teach them to work and not be on the keep themselves more safety. For now, more than 500 of people get these courses. After the course, they get this drone as equipment, and so in this case, the equipment is get to the people who can work with it carefully, and it will be more longer in use. Another direction of our work, this is mobile medicine projects. This is a project was established for getting people on the deoccupation territories and medical services. This is a big team of doctors who are running to the territories that have been occupied. The project was started in September. For this moment, more than 2,400 consultations have been done. Just this Sunday, our team come back from their trip to Kherson region. This was their second trip. The first was in December. So we have different directions. Also, we have such kind of experience when the business company or even volunteers group says that we would like to do something, but we don't know how to do and what is more necessary for now. So we cooperate and help them make this case in a project that we will work. And we have different experiences with our partners and donors, because, for example, now in Ukraine we have a partnership with all big cities, but our most volunteers hub are now in Truskovets, in Kyiv, and in Dnipro. For example, just only Dnipro hub has more than 50 volunteers group and companies with whom we cooperate. So this is a huge number of people who are grounded, who work, who understand the situation on the places. Also, we built a good international network with our partners, and this is a great pleasure for me to see some of our partners here in this room. This is UK, Netherlands, Spain, Poland, France, the USA. So we are very open for any kind of ideas that can help for us now. And it is really necessary to understand that from the both sides are people, the people of the whole world and the people in Ukraine. And it is quietly necessary to build the bridge between these people. So my advice will find your partner on Ukraine, find your partner whom you can trust on Ukraine, whom you give your resources, and you will know that it will be on the place. And I can say that not only our organization works, so there are a lot of organizations, we all communicate, we all understand who where. And just yesterday saw the phrase of Martin Luther King. He said that it's not always you can do a great things, but always you can do a small things on a great way. So I suggest you to do small thing on a great way, and then grow them to the great things on the great way. It is necessary to understand. For now, the victory of Ukraine, it will not be the finish, it will be only the start. And it is necessary to build this bridge, to find your partner, because we are running not only a short sprint, we will run a full marathon, and we are gonna be ready to this work. So, thank you.
Thank you so much to Olena and Irina. And Irina, I have to respectfully disagree with you saying that you're not a hero. I am absolutely confident that everyone in this room would call a doctor a woman who is looking after babies born, women who are giving birth, staying in Kharkiv, under bombs, under shelling, helping women from deoccupied territories. I think all of us would agree that both Irina and Olena are heroes. We're grateful to you. I would like to ask Christina Waller to join our discussion. And I don't have to say that this is my opinion. Canada just inaugurated James Timmertay on Canada's Walk of Fame as Canada's national hero. He just received the National Hero Award. There were it was broadcast all over Canada. There were over 100 members of the community celebrating a man who was born in Donbass, Ukraine, who made his life in renewable energy, who has never stopped loving Ukraine and helping in any way possible. I know, Christine, if Jim was here, he would not say what you're about to say about what he is contributing, what he's doing, and what Timmertay Foundation is doing from the beginning and in particular since the full-fledged invasion. Please, Christina.
Thank you, Lena. And I just want to thank everybody at Ukraine House Davos, Svetlana, Lena, Ulyana, for the opportunity to be here to speak with you today. It's really incredible what the ladies who have planned Ukraine House Davos have been able to accomplish. It's a great representation of Ukraine, and I'm honored to be here today with you, so thank you. As Lena mentioned, the Timmertay Foundation is the family foundation of James Timmertay. He and his wife Louise started the foundation in 1997, but have really been helping on the ground in Ukraine since the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991 and continue their support to this day. Their daughter Leah has now taken over managing the foundation. And they have 4 pillars. The foundation looks to help in areas of healthcare, education, arts and culture, and then Ukraine is its own pillar. And the motivation for the family, it's a passion for James to support Ukraine in all aspects of life. And by that I mean we absolutely have a massive humanitarian crisis, and that is our #1 priority right now. But for many years he has done many things to make sure that Ukraine is at the forefront. For example, we have the Timmertay Contemporary Ukraine program at Harvard University, so that students from all over the world can come and learn about contemporary Ukraine and why it's important in the world and globally, and the impact that Ukraine has. We have Ukraine and European dialogue at the Vienna Institute with Timothy Snyder's work that we support. We have many programs at the University of Toronto that we've supported. That's in the education field. In healthcare, we look to always support doctors and Ukrainians who are studying globally, on top of the work that we do to support Canadians and Canadian institutions. I think, the scope, the foundation has donated hundreds of millions, and they continue to do it to this day. When the war started in 2014, James really wanted to make sure that his I mean, he's from Donbass. So for him, this was even more personal, I think, than for others, because this is where he was born, where he was raised, and where he feels a great debt to the country that he came from. And so he was motivated to help with the humanitarian crisis. The humanitarian crisis is indeed a massive, massive global crisis right now. There's 18 million people approximately in need in Ukraine. That crisis continues to grow every single day. You hear stories from Olena and Irina, and I don't know that any of us in this room, unless we've been there and seen it with our own eyes, can actually understand how terrible it must be. Children are losing their childhood. Children are worried about anxiety and fear and things that they have to witness, and they're suffering from isolation. And it's something that speaks to all of us, but in particular to our foundation. And we want to work with organizations on the ground in Ukraine that are helping daily. And so we contacted, for example, Yaroslava Gress at United 24, and we said, how can we help? And for us as an international organization, it was really important to listen to the people on the ground, to talk to individuals who are there helping, witnessing it, and saying, what do you need? Because it's fine for us to think what we want to do, but what we really want to do is make a big impact. And so we were able to give United 24 $1 million to help with generators for hospitals so that incredible doctors can continue their work with light. Because right now, many of these doctors and many of these volunteers are working in terrible conditions in the dark. So United 24 is one. The Olena Zelenska Foundation is another trusted partner of ours who is going into the deoccupied regions and making sure that people have what they need to survive the winter. We also think it's really important to unite efforts and to be a united global diaspora in general. And so we've made great effort to support the Ukrainian World Congress. I see the Vice President is here with us today, Andrei Fute. And their Unite with Ukraine campaign that reaches globally from Australia to the United States to Canada, all through Europe, to unite efforts. And they've delivered over $40 million of aid now on the ground, again, on the ground in Ukraine, because the crisis needs our help, and the global community should, and I hope will join us, everybody in this room, and come together and support these organizations who are doing, in my opinion, God's work on the ground and keeping Ukrainians alive, and more than that, giving them hope. It's what I found as somebody who's not in Ukraine fighting, I'm fighting on the other side. Ukrainians want to know that they're not alone right now, and that this crisis is our crisis. And that's why I think Ukraine is You is such a great title for this house, because Ukraine really is all of us. It could be my nephew on the table. It could be, your daughter. And it's important that all of us keep that context in mind and do everything we can every day, no matter how small or how great, to support people of Ukraine.
Thank you so much, Christina. That's a real call to action that we should and will all heed. Michael, successful business person, shaping Miami Beach, real estate, hospitality, entertainment. Then you take the full force of your knowledge and skills and applied 100% to philanthropic work. I was very touched when I saw a video that you made, and you said that what's happening in Ukraine and the response of you, your organization, is the culmination of everything that you've ever learned in your life. Michael, please tell us about the work of Global Empowerment Mission and your personal commitment to helping ease suffering in Ukraine.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm very proud to be with all these women warriors here. Actually, the only guy, which is amazing. So, it really shows. First disaster I was involved in was in 1999 in the Kosovo crisis, and I was in the private sector fully focused on the private sector for many, many years, and I was on the philanthropy side as a philanthropist, and I raised a lot of money for a lot of different organizations that I sat on many boards with, and I didn't really see, sitting on those boards, impact, meaning dollar versus impact. So I formed and founded GEM in 2011 after the Haiti earthquake. I'm giving you guys the big picture to understand the devotion here. And our motto from day one has been how to get the most amount of aid to the most amount of people for the least amount of money in the shortest amount of time. That's it. And the same applies for rebuilding. Rebuilding comes in many phases. How to get the most amount of students back in school for the least amount of money. How to get the most amount of people back into an apartment building for the least amount of money in the shortest amount of time. So that's our philosophy. And in order to do that, you have to look at every single disaster as a brand new disaster because there's no handbook. So we got here on February 24th, immediately went to the Medica border, and by the 26th on the border, there was a lot of people coming through. So as I was watching this, and we were one of the first tents, or the first tent set up there, I realized with this kind of influx of people, there was going to need to be a massive relocation program going on, and there was going to need to be enormous amounts of aid that no small group can do on its own. So what we do is a smart partnership model. We basically work with everybody, major corporations in the United States and all over the world. To date, we've imported 330 containers, 40-foot containers, and we've amassed about 80 18-wheeler trucks from England, Spain, Italy. And we've also amassed aid from partners in Japan, in India, all over, that have collected aid, but don't always have the abilities and resources, right, to get it distributed. So that was the first thing that we had to do. We set up a warehouse on the Polish border in Rzeszów that was up and running by the first week of March. And let's call that a gas station. That was a gas station of aid, right, where very incredible warriors like them at the time where, you know, it was under full attack in Kyiv, everything, would go to the gas station, fill up a truck or a bus that was going to extract people from Mariupol and at the same time bring aid. And we were playing that role. We were purchasing buses, and there was groups that we were donating them to so they could go extract people and extract children. So that was the first stage. We did that and in Hungary also because there was an influx of refugees. And then we partnered with the former First Lady of Poland, Jolanta Kwasniewska, and we created a massive relocation program for Ukrainian refugees. We relocated to date almost 39,000 people, and we did not relocate them by just throwing them on a train and saying goodbye. We had an organized program with all kinds of people working on the other front. So there was a program if you go to Italy, there was a program if you go to Dublin, there was a program if you go to Finland, and we were giving offerings to people and what choices they were to make. We relocated people to about 50 different countries. Now we're in April. Russia announces that they're basically gonna only focus on the eastern parts, and Bucha is basically liberated. We immediately go into Bucha. I meet the mayor of Bucha. We bring him some 18-wheelers of aid and supplies. He tells me a very smart thing. He says, you know, we really appreciate all this, and aid is incredible, but Ukrainians are very proud people, and we really need help. How you can really help us is if you help us get this city back on track right now. We're liberated. This city is suffering so much, and if you could help us get the grocery stores back open and some apartment buildings so people move back here, will create like almost a micro economy within itself, and it'll start sustaining itself immediately. upon him asking me that, I shifted our major funds that were going to the relocation program, and we started applying them back into basically this relocation program. Ironically, when we were at Expo, for example, in Warsaw, largest refugee shelter, and we were interviewing people, a lot of the women didn't really want to leave. They said, our husbands are fighting this war, we have our children here, we actually want to go back, but we're scared and our schools are closed, and if our schools will be back open and I had new windows in my apartment building, then I'll go back. So the concept here was to reverse the refugee crisis, actually from imploding completely into Europe and finding programs so people can come back, right? Which that has ultimately worked, because if you look at Kyiv, had a population of 3.2 million, it went down to 300,000 in April, and now it's almost back to the 2.8 or something like that, right? So no matter what's happening, people will not leave. So we eventually set up warehouses in Lviv, and then we set up a major warehouse. It's about 70,000 square feet, to give you an idea of that, in Kyiv. And we have a partner program with Ukrainian orgs where we supply Ukrainian orgs with endless amounts of aid. We have 125 different warrior groups, and everyone has their skills and abilities, right? So some people are specialists in Kharkiv, some people are specialists in Chernihiv, some people know, just different areas. And you have to work with experts if you really want to execute this properly. So we also have a secondary program, which is basically signing MOUs with various oblasts and governors, and on a weekly basis, we supply them with their needs. Everybody's needs is different in the country. Obviously, right now, everybody needs generators and energy, but there are places where there's more IDPs, right, internally displaced people. So these regions need things like blankets, mattresses, beds, right, things for the shelters. And then there are also areas that we are supplying directly right now in partnership with the Howard G. Buffett Foundation. We basically look at a map of the whole entire front line with trained military people, even Israeli, Ukrainian trained military people. And we look at all the little villages that are, say, 3 kilometers from the front line to probably 150 kilometers from the front line. And we service all of those regions because the people there will not leave. They are elderly people that have been there throughout it all, literally from the time of World War II to the USSR. They have always lived there, and they are strong, and they're not leaving. And there's no stores that are open for them at this point. And the only thing you can do is bring those villages aid, right? So that's one of the other things that we do. And today, our reconstruction program has already repaired approximately 180 homes, about 10 schools, like 6 hospitals. And I'm giving you these numbers because I want to talk about math, and I'm almost done. There's a lot of waste in this sector, and there's a lot of money raised, and it actually kills me because the misallocation of funds is sometimes hurting Ukrainians more than anything, right? And all of these things that I just mentioned, the relocation of 40,000 people, we've actually delivered to date, those stats are old, 800 18-wheeler trucks with $100 million worth of supplies to almost every single area in Ukraine, and over 50 of them on an actual weekly basis, continually, the whole time, right? And this is nowhere, this has nothing to do with bragging. The reason I'm bringing this up is we did all of that, including all the rebuild, with $18 million, okay? So when I hear that, we raised $150 million and we raised $50 million, and I don't understand those things, because what we do is cut out waste, right? It's basically like A to B to C, right? We get the product from the corporations in America for free. Our investment is the warehouse and the logistics and the gas and the truck drivers. And then once we have the aid, we deliver it to incredible groups like them who go and do that. And a lot of times they do it on their own dime, actually, right? So this is a mechanism. This is like a new system of disruption of how to get the most amount of aid to the most amount of people for the least amount of money.
Yeah, actually, I want to add that we have such a project is named as Volunteers for Volunteers. It's about how to cooperate and to be more effective when we communicate and coordinate. It's who can do the best. So this is the same field. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I can, Michael, I want to follow up with you with one question. You said that you're cooperating basically with many organizations, corporations, and many Ukrainian organizations are now struggling, looking for partners, struggling for funds internationally. Could you give advice in your experience, like what could be the key points that we can deliver to get results? I mean, what can convince international business to provide support to Ukrainians?
Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of donor fatigue, right? 90% of all the money that we raised ended by probably May or June. It's very difficult. Because we are a supply organization, right? We're able to get a lot of supplies. We already have currently, right now, 9,000 pallets already inside Europe that we've already brought. And those 9,000 pallets are calculated, right? So basically for the next 12 months, because this is a marathon, we know what we can allocate every single month. So the aid and resources we already have. So if it's a good partner, we'll give them the aid and resources, right? But this is an extremely dangerous job right there. Like I was just in Avdiivka and all these places literally like 2.5 weeks ago. On Christmas, I spent my Christmas actually in that region. And when I got to the square in one of these areas outside of Avdiivka, and the regional head showed me where we were going to have a distribution, for some reason my instinct was like, I don't really feel it. We were already unloading the truck. I said, put the aid back in the truck. Let's go deliver it directly to the village. We got to the village. We made deliveries. While we were in the village, 2 rockets went and basically hit that square. As we were driving, there was a drone at night literally following us with a light. I was about to jump out of the car, and I saw the Ukrainians shoot the drone down, and it exploded all in front of us. So this is not, that's something that's for everybody. And we have to sit down with professional military people every single morning at like 5 a.m. and like look at a map because it's interchangeable. What's safe, tomorrow might not be safe on Wednesday and so on. So we do not fund like other groups. We're not a foundation. They're a foundation. They fund us. So, but we're operators that try to operate, with the maximum amount of capabilities for the least amount of money.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Svetlana, I think we've got about 20 minutes. So why don't we do a few more questions to Elena and Irina? We'll do a couple more, and then to Michael, Christina, and then I have 2 very special people to introduce in the audience.
Okay, so maybe we give a floor to the audience. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, and our volunteers will help you with the mic. Any questions? Okay.
And there are quite a few Ukrainians. I'm from the Netherlands, and all the village there are now Ukrainians living. I would say about half of them have returned and half of them are still there. So what is your perspective on that? What does Ukraine need for these people still to be helped in Western Europe? Or do you want them back to rebuild the country? And the second question is, I'm starting to notice that quite a few, all these women come with their children without their husbands, and quite a few of these women start to find out that they like life without their husbands and starting to divorce them. So, what should there be some help to families? I mean, how do you look at that?
I don't know, Irina, maybe you want to take that?
Just look. I have 3 children, and they live now in different countries of the world. Each one of them says the same thing: it's bad here. Even though I understand that's good there, but they all dream about returning to Ukraine. I have many patients who we were taking care of in our perinatal center, many children with disabilities. And I believe that now, when they're in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Great Britain, these children have chance to Canada. But every mother says one and the same thing: Irina, we cannot stay here without you. And we are counting weeks till we go back home. And in short ways, they're trying to go to Lviv to just see their husbands. Sometimes they leave their children with the families where they stay. This is all very complicated. And myself, as the mother, I understand that the women will return with their children when they have where to live, even in Kharkiv, in our city, part of the city which is called Saltivka, where there were 500,000 residents. This part is ruined, 500,000. That was like a bedroom district. They need where to return to. They need schools, children's pediatric hospital, and kindergartens. And after that, women will be back because they are not afraid of work, and their husbands are there, and the husbands are at the front line.
I will answer your question from 2 sides. From the side as the mom of 2 daughters, and from the side as the head of charity organization. As I say, as I feel, my kids finish their childhood at the 21st of February. They become adults. It's not about their age. It's not about they just wake up of the phone of their friends who says that here's a rocket near my house. It's war. And it was a very hard decision for me to keep my kids in the safe place, to work in a distance, to keep a big team grounded in Ukraine. Usually in March and April and May, my work day was for 20 hours while I stay abroad with 2 kids, and I must manage all the things. But 14th of January this year, Dnipro, this rocket fell in the house where my school, in 500 meters. My best friend lives in the nearest house. I asked her, maybe I can bring your daughter to me. She said, no, she saw everything. She saw it. She feel it. Her friends are died here. So, asking this question, all family decide on their decision how they will manage it. But it's hard. I saw my husband for 4 times from this period. But as a head of charity organization, I know that we will come back and we will rebuild. And now we launched a project with the mind of future. In our organization, we decided focus on rebuild life being. We established the first step of creating an institute of rehabilitation for victims of the war. It will be both as a physical and psychological rehabilitation. This year we are planning to teach doctors and specialists to work in this area because these huge numbers of people who need this help. It's unpredictable. So if we find the first investment for this step and we'll run and move. But I saw a lot of people abroad and speak and communicate, and everyone wants to come back. Just only it will keep the safe just when the sky will close and there will no unsafe anywhere, anytime. You don't know where it will come. It's unpredictable. So,
thank you.
Another way of saying be grateful for your bad marriages wherever you are, because you have safety. You'll figure that out after. Anyway, the point is, that was a minor question. Now the women are feeling separate, but when they go, anyway, for all of us in the West, where we have marital problems, life ain't so bad.
Well, I'm glad we're having this discussion because for me, everything's so rooted in facts, and I think your question about this, the fact is that 7.9 million people left the country. The fact is 5.5 million have come back. The fact is that those folks who are abroad are sending up to $2 billion, $1.2 billion at the beginning, back to their families in Ukraine. They are dreaming about coming back, and I don't think there's a person in this room with children who would want their children to have the trauma of coming back when the sky isn't closed. So, and I think we've got to be careful about stereotypes about women leaving their husbands or this kind of, this is the exceptions, and we shouldn't be casting spotlights. Okay, any more questions? Please, at the back there.
Also, a reminder, we only have probably like 5 minutes left for questions.
I'll keep mine short. My name is Tom Dana. I'm the Chief Executive of Street Child. We're an international NGO focused in the child protection, education and emergencies space. Been working throughout Africa and Asia for 15 years. We decided to support the situation in Ukraine on day 2 of the conflict. Our modus operandi is entirely to support local organizations. We never build our own infrastructure in country. Like I said, we focus on education and child protection. Two main points to the panel, and just to say it's been an awesome panel, easily the best panel I've heard in Davos so far, so thank you so much. One, I'd love to hear, yeah, let's do that. A couple of you touched on it, but one, I'd love to hear any reflections panelists have on the needs in the child protection, the psychosocial, and especially the education space. I think it'd be great for everyone to hear those and think about those. And secondly, to shout out to anyone in the room. So far, we've worked directly with 25 Ukrainian NGOs. We're increasingly focusing our support in the deoccupied areas, and we're constantly looking for recommendations and more organizations on the ground. Our expertise, again, is on a technical level in the child protection, in the education space. We're also very well connected to the established UN funding streams. So what we're doing is connecting local organizations through grants to these major funding streams and trying to get money as quickly as possible from the big buckets into the hands of the effective local organizations on the ground. So again, we are constantly searching for recommendations of impactful organizations working in education and child protection spaces. Thank you. It's Street Child is the organization.
Yeah,
Michael, please.
I could definitely speak on the educational portion, right? So what we've been doing is looking at schools that, like I said, how to get the most amount of kids back in school as possible, right? So if you have a school that's been completely demolished, that's going to take 2 years to rebuild. If you have one that, has a whole chunk demolished, it might take 6 months. And if you have one that just lost all its windows, the roof, and a radiator, it could probably be fixed with efficient labor in like 3 months, right? So the first 10 schools we did were on that level. They're light repairs. And what we found is we measured the amount of students, right, with the dollar analysis, right? So let's do some quick math. You take a school in Chernihiv, and we put 1,600 children back in that school. And we did a private-public partnership with the governor, and we just paid for the windows, and they paid for the roof, right? Roof, windows, right? 300 grand total. We only eat 150 of it. You got 1,600 children back in school. Do the math. You're talking about very minimal amounts of money to put the children back in school. What I will tell you, that's the most amazing thing, is that when we started the project in Bucha, the kids were basically, had nothing to do all day long, and they were basically, you know, in a house or on a street in a house that every other house in their neighborhood was rubble, and they were basically playing in the rubble. And we got this done by September 1st. By the ribbon cutting on September 1st, those kids were back in like Ukrainian uniforms, and they were ecstatic and happy. They were playing soccer in a new soccer field that was done with brand new turf, and they were all amongst each other, right? And that's why we're called global empowerment. That is empowerment, right? So when you look at the minimal investment, you're talking about all these children get to play and be with each other again. It's a very wise investment. So we've only done 10 schools. Imagine how many schools have been destroyed. We have a hybrid partnership, basically, and it's important to understand this, costs again. We only buy materials in Ukraine, and the only labor we have is Ukrainian labor, and they're hybrid laborers. So they basically are like kind of volunteers that are Ukrainian and that are like, well, I want to get the kids back in school, so I'm going to do this for half of what I would normally get paid. And they work from like 6 in the morning to 7 o'clock at night in the dark, nonstop. I used to own a construction company in the private sector. I've never seen people build so quickly in my life. I mean, it's unbelievable. And so when you cut out all the waste, all the middlemen, all the profit, the contractors who's taking 20%, this, that, and you just pay the labor and buy the materials and manage it, you're going to get 10 more schools built for the price of one. So feel free to talk to us after this. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And Christina?
Yeah, I'd love to add to that, Michael. Incredible work. Street Child as well, incredible work. I used to be the executive director of a charity called Help Us Help that's goal is to help children in Ukraine for the last 30 years. And I just don't think that we can underscore this part of the humanitarian crisis and what a big problem it is. I mean, Ukrainian children were out of school because of COVID already. Right? And now this has just exacerbated the amount of education that they've lost and how they're falling behind. It's vital to get them back in schools. And one of the projects with the Olena Zelenska Foundation is to try and get kids back in school. I'm happy to talk to you after as well about different organizations that we've supported as the Timurtay Foundation to try and get kids back in school.
Thank you so much, Christina. Before we go to closing comments by all of the panelists, Michael, not to make you, again, you mentioned about surrounded by warrior women. We have 2 more warrior women in the audience that I do want to give a shout out because they're here, they're warriors. I'll start off with Yaroslava Gres, who's the coordinator for United 24 Initiative, the President's Initiative. Last year in Davos, it was wonderful. We had a United 24 stand. I remember looking at the ticker, the number, it's very transparent. Everything that they received, they have a report on. $16 million was last year. Now it's $271.4 million. Wonderful work, Yaroslava. Wonderful work, United 24. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Carrie, I need to mention you. Yes, I will. We're so honored, Carrie Kennedy, that you're here with us today. And of course, Carrie is the president of the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights. And it was so incredible when President Volodymyr Zelensky received the Ripple of Hope Award this year. Thank you, Carrie. I know how much you care about Ukraine, and I know all of the partnerships that you have globally and all that you bring to bear to support Ukraine at this time. So Yaroslava and Carrie, please stand up, turn around, and let's give them a round of applause. Thank
and
you.
before we go for the closing remarks from our panelists, we would like to show you a video we have prepared about the humanitarian heroes in Ukraine. Please, can you put on the video?
Ukraine is every one of us who leads humanitarian defense. Ukraine is he who forgot about himself, those who give their warmth to others. Ukraine is she who knows it's never enough, those who walk without a day off, those who intertwine their destinies with others, those who can cure someone's fate. He who finally bought a car, and more than one. Those who finally got this delivery. She who just worries about the kids. Those who don't forget old friends. Ukraine is they who have the biggest heart. Those who don't let us stop. And Ukraine is everyone who joins us.
You know, what's incredible before we go into closing remarks is that it doesn't matter where you come from. Ukraine needs your heroism today in every single way that you can contribute, and it cannot stop. This isn't over.
So we would like to ask our panelists for the key messages you would like to deliver to this fantastic audience we have today. So maybe Christina will start with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Again, thank you for having us today. I think it was a great discussion. I enjoyed learning so much about what others are doing. I think the theme of the House is really my number one closing message. Ukraine is you. And Ukrainian people are strong. They're willing to put their lives on the line. Every one of us can find a way in our daily lives to support them, whether that's sharing materials online that are truthful, whether that's making sure Ukraine stays in the news, stays relevant, donations, lobbying your local government, your representatives to continue their increased support for Ukraine. There's something each and every one of us can do to help support Ukrainian people in their fight for freedom. And I encourage you all to take action.
Thank you very much. Michael?
I live in Miami. I came here. I've slept in my bed less than 10 times since this war started. I live in Kyiv now. We set up all the infrastructure necessary, and my entire personal life is at zero, does not even exist. And I would not be doing this, right? Because there's no money in it. I'm not in a mixed thing. Like we are only from a humanitarian aspect of it. There's no ulterior motives, there's nothing. The only reason that I do this is because it is what's right, and it is what's needed. And just like our grandparents that dealt, and there was a Hitler, and all these people should have stopped them before, right? And it wasn't, and they let them build up, and look what happened in World War II. It's the same thing now. And every single person plays a necessary part of the spoke in the wheel in all of this. Everybody, like she said, right? Everybody has their role. We do aid, the government, everyone. And it's important that I have not met a person in Ukraine that does not have the strongest will of anybody that I've ever met in my life. There's no one here that thinks that they're going to lose this war. There's no commander I've spoken to that even has doubts. It's just a question of time, and we got to hang in there and believe in it, and Ukraine will win this.
Helena?
I just want to say that it is necessary to be ready, all of us, to a long marathon. It is necessary to be ready for it, to understand it, to be active, to find your partner and to bring and to build your bridge to Ukraine, be grounded, and keep doing great things on the great way. And I thank you for everyone here for this support and for all that you do for Ukraine today.
Ірина?
Я вчора розмовляла з редактором.
yesterday I was talking to the editor-in-chief of one of the European TV channels, and she said that the military pictures of destruction stop causing emotions, and they don't disturb as much as before, and we need to find some new aspects and angles. I was thinking about these words for for one day probably, and I want to tell you and that person that when I can have a little bit of sleep, I see the same dream as I give anesthetics to narcosis to a wounded girl. She's 1 year old. She almost lost her face, just eyes left because of the wound. The second dream is me taking from the hands of the wounded mother the dead body of her child. And the third, and it just goes one after the other. And the third dream is when I was started traveling as volunteer to the deoccupied territories as a pediatrician, because there are no pediatricians there. I went to Izum and I brought them food and books to children. I give them food, and the boys, 5 and 6 year olds, they start dancing and singing Soviet songs. At first, I couldn't understand anything, and then they explained, the children, to them that Russian soldiers were giving them food, and they taught them to dance and sing these songs. And it's a horror. So if anyone, anywhere next to you will have to change the context and paradigm about Ukraine, please remember these 3 dreams of mine. Please don't get accustomed to the war in Ukraine.
Speakers who were here with us, you took a long way to be here. It's really hard to speak after these words, but we want to thank you for what you're doing, for your support for Ukraine, for saving lives every day. This is really important. And I want to thank you, the audience, you were here with us. You heard about what's going on in the country, and we would appreciate lots if you could share and spread the word about the Ukraine, about the situation in the country further with the people you know. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for your humanity, for those that care, for whom it matters. Thank you for being here with us today. And we have to add this we look forward to a victorious New Year. We look forward to these nightmares that Pani Irina spoke about to end. And we look forward to all of you continuing with Ukraine through the end of this horrific war and beyond. There is a great deal to do after. Please don't stop. Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава!